So learners, today we will be studying about more into manipulating data in Oracle. In my previous vlog, we have studied about the insert DML statement, but in this vlog, we will be studying a bit of insert DML statement, which I will explain you in the start of the vlog. And then we will deep dive into the another DML statement, that is the update statement. So learners, get ready to learn this interesting topic, but before that, please do like, share, subscribe my channel and do comment if you have any kind of doubts. I will personally take care of your doubts and solve your queries. In the description box of the vlog, you will have my number. If you to know more about the topic, call me directly. So, without much delay, let's get started. But don't forget to hit the bell icon to get more updates about many more tutorial videos. Let's get started. We will be studying more about the DML statement. In my previous vlog, I have already explained about the insert DML statement. So today we will be studying more about the update DML statement. But before that, there are few things of the insert DML statement to explain. So the first thing is that if we want to insert any specific date values by insert DML statement, how do we do that? Insert into employees, then values. So when we are not mentioning any kind of column names in the insert into clause, that means we have to provide values in all the columns of the employees table. Say for instance, we give 1500, comma, then we give then we give D and then, comma, then we give roughly, then we give comma DRAPHEL raffle, then we give comma, say 515.127.4561, comma, then we give to date. Okay, so to date we give as Feb 3 1999, and then we mention it as MON. MON means that is Feb. 3 means space, that is DD. Okay, it should be 03, but 0 is optional, like you can use or you may not use. Then you give a comma and then the year portion, that is YYYY. Correct? So basically this one is the format model, and according to the format model the value is being provided. MON means the first 3 letters of the month, that is for February it is FEB, for January it will be JAN, for March MAR, and so on. As the second format model is DD, which means 2 digits of the date, that is in number, so we mentioned it as 3. This is the date. Okay, and 4 digits in a year, so that should be 1999. Now if we would have mentioned in the format model as YY, then here the value should have been like this, 99. Okay, so now YY, yeah, now comma, then comes your AC underscore account, then comes 11,000, then comes a null value, then comes 100, and then comes 30. Correct? And then we execute the query. Unique constraint EMP email UK. Okay, so there is a email column. I think wait, let me check the employees table. Select star from employees. So the email I think we have it. Okay, fine, let me change the column. It's the 1 2 3 4th column is the email column. 1 2 3 4, correct? So we already have it, so we give it as gmail.com. We execute the query. 1 row got inserted. Now if we check for select star from employees, you see in the 109 number record, this data, this 1500 data, which I have just inserted into the employees table. Okay, the employees table got inserted. right? Now the question is, what is the usage of inserting the specific date format? Correct. Now see, the date is being stored in this format. Like 03, I said you that 0 is not mandatory. Oracle by default puts 0 before if it is a single digit date. So that's 03, then it took February, that is FEB, and then 99, the last two digits of the year. That is the default save format of Oracle. But actually in the database, the entire value gets saved. The entire value of the year gets saved, but when you query the table, only you get to see the last two digits of the year, means of the year. Okay, that is of the year portion in the date format. Okay. Now, what happens? The DDMONYY format is usually used, like which format? This one, DDMONYY. This is usually used to insert data in any Oracle table. Okay. But with this format which we have used, right? With this format, like the format is this is the format model, the entire thing with this specific date format which we have used here, the century defaults to the current century. Okay, that is the century portion is this, the first two. These two are the actual year portions, correct, in the entire year. Now what happens with this format? The century defaults to the current century, and by default this date also has time portion in it. Okay, also has time portion. Now I will show you the time portion. Select, if you want to see the time portion of the higher date column, you have to write like this, 2 char higher date, comma, you write it like this, DDMONYYYY HH24 MISS. This is in the 24-hour format, MI for minute, SS for second. Okay. From employees, let us see the record which I just inserted, where employee ID is equals to 1500. Okay. See, the time portion is also been saved by default. But as I didn't mention time, so by default the time portion is 000000. This is the default data time saving rule. If you don't mention any time in your insert statement, if you mention only date, then by default Oracle saves the time portion as 000000. But that time portion is not shown while you query the table. Only the date portion is only shown. But what happens? What happens now when you insert a date in a table, that is higher date is of date data type. Now when you insert a value in a table, in a column whose data type is date, always mention, means insert the date by converting it to toDate, because if you try to insert the date by converting it to 2 char, then it will give data type mismatch error, because the data type of this column is date, but you are converting the date into character and then trying to insert the value, that character value, because the date once gets converted into character is considered as a character value. So once that string value or the character value gets inserted in a date data type column, so it will give an error as data type mismatch. Okay, so suppose we copy the same query and we try to insert the record in higher date column which has a date data type. See, but we mention, instead of toDate, we mention it as 2 char. See what will happen. It gave error. See, unable to convert string containing string to a number, which means that the higher date of the employees table, this column corresponds to date data type, but we are trying to convert the date data type to character and then trying to insert that character value into a column which has a date data type. So both have a data type mismatch. That is the reason this conversion error is shown. Correct? Unable to convert string value containing percentages means string to a number. Okay, it is considering the date as a number. Okay, so it is giving the error like that. Correct? But higher date is a date data type column. How do you check that higher date is a date data type column? Just write this query, DESC, the table name. If you write this, see what will happen. Yeah, see, the entire structure of the employees table is visible here. And now if you check the hire date column, see hire date, the data type of the hire date column is date, right? And we are trying to convert it, the date value to character, and trying to insert that character value into the date data type column. That is the reason that error has been shown. Now what happens, that this is a specific date value, correct? So what happens with this date value? Now by default the century defaults to the current century. Like if you mention, if you don't mention as YYYY, and if you mention only YY, then the year portion which will be saved in the column will correspond to the current century. So what is the current century? That is 2026 means 20th century, 20, right? So that will be saved as 2099. Okay, so if I give here as like this 99 and I remove the prefix 2y, then it will default to the current century, which means Oracle, whatever date it saves, it defaults to the current century. So it will be 2099, right? But as I mentioned it as 1999, okay, and I mentioned here as YY means 4 times Y, so it will take the century as what is mentioned in the value, that is 1999 and not 2099. Okay, if you don't mention this century portion, it will default to the current century. If you mention the century portion, it will take that century, whatever you are mentioning in the value of the date column, correct? Now we will learn about a variable known as a substitution variable. What is this substitution variable? This is basically, you can call it as a dynamic variable. Okay, let us see. Insert into departments. Okay, then we give, like, say for instance, department ID, comma, department name, comma, location. Okay, but department table has more columns. It doesn't have only 3 columns. See, I will show you. Select star from departments. See, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, but we are inserting data in 3 columns only. That is why we mentioned the column name in the insert into clause. Values. Then we give, see how the substitution variable is written. Put an ampersand sign and then just write the column name. Department, department ID. Okay. Then you give like department name, ampersand, department name. Then you give as ampersand, location, or only location. Remember one thing, it is not mandatory that after ampersand you have to give the same column name only. You can give any name, but that should be meaningful. Means you should understand that this entire thing is called a substitution variable. You should understand that this variable corresponds to department ID, this variable corresponds to department name, and this variable corresponds to location ID. You see, the first substitution variable, after ampersand I mentioned the exact column name. Second substitution variable, also after the ampersand I mentioned the exact column name. But the third one I didn't mention the exact column name. I gave you a location, but the column name is location ID. Sorry. So let me run this query. After I run this query, you see it is giving a or asking the user a runtime value for the first column, that is department ID, right? And the query will keep on running unless and until you put the value, right? So just remember, this one is known as an user input. User input means you are asking the user to give some value while running the query. The query has not yet given the output, but it is running. Still it is in the running mode. So at that point of time, it is asking the user for values. That's why it is known as substitution variable. Whatever value you will put here, that value will be carried to this values clause, this substitution variable, and this substitution variable will be replaced with the value that the user will give here. Right? Suppose I give here 2000. Then I click on OK. Then the next substitution variable is department name, say information tech. The third is location. It will ask for location. Say I gave here Haldia and now I clicked on OK. But it is giving a required comma. Did I do any mistake? Location ID. It is giving us missing comma. But where is the missing comma? Oh, my mistake. See, what will happen? Department name is a character. So I have to put it in single quotes. Right? I didn't put it in single quotes. That's the reason the error is given. Again, I run the query. Department ID, say I gave 2000. Department name, I gave information tech. And location, I gave as Haldia. And then I run the query. Check the syntax of the and use of column names were appropriate. But I don't know why this error is giving, and it should not give the error. Basically, if I put this, I am giving the location, right? Location is basically location. I think is a what is the data type of location? Let me check. Departments, right? Let me see the department structure. The department's location means the location ID means it's a number. Okay, it's a number. Okay, fine. So department ID is 2000. The department name will be information tech, and say the location is, say I will keep it here 900. Then I give on OK. It's giving integrity constraint parent key, which means there is some duplicate values found. That parent key error, why it is giving, what is the explanation of that error, that I will explain you in my other vlog when I will be teaching you about the constraint part. So I think department ID I gave 2000, information tech, but why is this error giving? Department location FK. Okay, so I think 900 is there. I think that is the reason. 1700, 900 is not there. Okay, let me give it a try once again. Department ID is 2000. I gave as information tech, and then I give it as 5000. See, it's giving parent key not found. Parent key not found, which means integrity constraint department lock FK, parent key not found. Okay, what are the parent keys involved? 1700 is there. So let me give the same value. It will come as 2000, then information tech, and then I'll give it as 1700. Sorry. Yes, that record got inserted. One record got inserted. Okay, so parent key not found, I will explain you in my constraint part. Okay, now see, to the value 2000, information take as department name, and as I didn't give any value or pass any value in the manager ID column, so the manager ID is null and the location ID is 1700. Okay, now what happens in the substitution variable is, here whatever value you are putting, the first value you are giving department ID, say 3000. Okay, this value gets carried to the department ID as it is a variable. Variable means which holds a value. It gets carried to the department ID variable, and this value gets stored in the department ID substitution variable. Substitution variable is denoted by this ampersand before the variable name. Okay, then whatever value you are giving for department, say logistics, okay, this value gets carried over and it gets stored in the department name substitution variable. And when you give 1700, so this value is carried over and is stored in the location substitution variable. And after these three values are stored in these three different variables, then when you click on the OK, the value gets inserted in the departments table in these respective columns. Correct? Like this one, 3000 logistics and 1700. So what is the use of the substitution variable, or you can say what is the advantage? It means, like, suppose if you write the query like this, okay, and then you give the department ID, say hard coded 4000, then you write say finance in the department name, and you give location ID as 1700 or any existing value which is already present in the table, that is 2400. Okay, now what will happen? If you run this query once, one value will get inserted. Now if you want to change the value, you have to go to the query and then change the value in the query. Correct? Right? You want to make it 2700, then you have to change the value in the query. But in case of substitution variable, what will happen? Each time you run the query, each time the user will be prompted with values in the department ID, department name and the location column, right? So you do not need to go to the query and change any value. You do not need to again make any edits in the query. Only you need to change the value during the runtime, each time you run the query. So this is the advantage of a substitution variable. And each time you give a new value during runtime, that value will get inserted into the table. Okay. Now, so this ampersand, then the variable name is equal to, is called the substitution variable, right? It's substitution variable. Okay. Now let us understand another DML statement, that is the update statement. Okay. Now say there is a table as employees, okay, where employee ID is equals to 113. So 113 has a department ID as 100. Now we want to change this 100 against employee ID 113. We want to change this employee's department from 100 to 70. So what we will do? The value is already there in the table. So what we will do? We will just run an update statement. So what is the syntax? Update, then the table name, then you give set the column name which you want to update, that is the department ID. I mean the value in the column which you want to update is equal to, give the new value. This is the old value, existing value which is in the table, that is 100 against employee ID 113. You give the new value as 70. Okay. In the set clause, you give the column name where you want the change and the value, the new value which you want to change, like the old value which you want to get replaced with this new value, that you have to mention in the set clause of the update statement. Against which employee? 113. So there will be a where condition where employee ID is equals to 113. So one row updated. Let us see the value. So previously there was 100, now it is 70. So the value got updated, right? Now suppose this, though we have updated this department value for only employee 130. Now what if we want to update all the employees department ID to same department, say department 70, okay, for all the employees. So how many records we have in the employees table? We have a total of 109 records. So we want to update the department ID. There are different departments, different values in the departments, right? I mean different values in the department ID column of the employees table, but we want to make these 109 employees department as 70. That is, we want to convert these 109 employees to the same department. Then what we will write? We will write update employees set department ID is equals to 70. We will not put any where condition. So what will happen? You see. Unique constraint can be as a explicit unique constraint violated. Department ID update employees set department ID is equals to 70, which means we cannot. Actually, there is some unique constraint which will get violated. Okay, fine. So I'll show you the one for say job ID. We will update the job ID. Okay, update employees, set job ID is equals to address. It is not allowing to update all the data. EMP state hist EMP. Okay, there is a history table, so it will not allow to update all the data. All the data of the employees table it is not going to allow. So what we can do is we can create another table as copy EMP. I don't think that we have a table as copy EMP. Yes, we don't have. So we have to create another table. Otherwise, there is many tables which are linked to this employee table. That is the reason why it is not allowing to update all the data of the employees table with the same value. There is some restrictions or barriers already implemented in the table. Okay, so what we will do, we will create a dummy table. Okay, say copy underscore emp. Okay, as, and then we will give. I'll explain you in other vlogs when we will study about these create table statements, that what I am doing here. Just let me create the table now. Okay, so table copy emp created. Now we will imply or implement this one in the copy emp table. Select star from copy underscore emp. Okay, the table with the data got created. Now we will update copy underscore emp set department ID is equals to 70. That's it. Okay, so you see here you have the department ID, different department ID. So we are updating all the employees department to the same department. 70, 109 rows updated. Now if we run the copy emp, you see all the records will have the same department ID. See this, all the records will have the same department ID. So if you want to update the department of all the employees, just remove this where clause from the update query. Okay, now if we want to update, here we updated only one column. How do we understand? Because in the set clause there is only one column. Now if we want to update more than one column but with a subquery, okay, so which means update more than update value in more than one column using a subquery. How do we do this? Update employees set job ID is equals to, you give select job ID from employees where employee ID is equals to 205. Okay, then we put a comma, then we give salary is equals to select salary from employees where employee ID is equals to 205, right? Then we go to where employee ID is equals to 140. Okay, so before that let me show you the existing value first. Employees where employee ID is equals to 140. So which columns are we updating? We are updating in the set clause. There are two columns, job ID and salary. So for against employee 114, the job ID is PU underscore man and the salary is 11,000, right? Let us see whether the value got changed or not. Now once we run the query, run this query, okay, the identifier, okay, there must be some spelling mistakes. Salary, job ID, yes, see, I made a mistake here. It will be where employee, EMPLOYEE. Okay. Update. Why the value is giving where employee ID employees. One row updated. See, here gave one row updated. Now let us see the new value. Yes, the job ID from PU man it got changed to ACMGR, and salary from 11,000 it got changed to 12,008. So what happened in the query? It is updating the employees table. But which column it is updating? Job ID and salary column, which is separated by a comma. So which means if we want to update multiple columns in an update query, you have to separate the multiple columns by a comma. Okay. And then it is running the inner query first because this is a subquery. Okay. So it is taking the job ID from employees table where employee ID 205. It is taking this value AC underscore MGR. And from the second inner subquery, it is taking the salary as 12,008. So it is replacing the salary with this. Now this query looks like this after it is run. Once this inner query, the first inner query is run, it takes the value and then it puts here as like this AC MGR, comma, AC underscore MGR, and then it takes the second inner query, that is runs the second inner query and takes the value from the second inner query like this, and then it executes the query like this, the final query like this, that is salary as 12,008, and then against employee ID 114, the salary and the job ID column gets updated with these values accordingly, right? But remember, the entire query has used an equal to operator, which means that from the inner subquery, only one value should be returned at a time, as I have already explained in my previous vlog, like multiple subquery and single subquery. So this is basically a single row subquery because it is returning only one record, or it should return only one record from the inner query, right? That is the reason why we are mentioning the where clause, and only against this employee, the job ID means 205 employee is only one employee has an employee ID 205. No other employee will have the same employee ID. So there will be only one record with employee ID 205. So the job ID and the salary column data will also be returned once. That is why we have used here equal to operator. And taking the value from the inner query, the outer query gets executed. Then the query gets parsed like this by the Oracle engine, and the final output is been shown here, right? Now, this is basically updating two columns or multiple columns with or using a subquery, you can say. Now, we will learn about updating rows based on another table. Okay. Let us see. Update copy underscore emp set department underscore id is equals to select department id from employees where employee id is equals to 100, then 100, then where job id is equals to select job id from employees where employee id is equals to 200, right? So if we run the query, one row got updated. Now let us see the copy emp table. So in the copy emp table, select star from copy underscore emp. So let us run the inner query first in the where clause and see what value the inner query returns, that is ad underscore ASST. So that is job ID column. So copy emp table also has job ID column. So we will search with that value returned from the inner query because it is in the where clause, where job ID is equals to this one. So we have an employee as 200, right? So now here the department ID is 90, already 90. So let us change from 100 to 200 and then let us update the query. Okay. Now what will happen? You see the department ID got changed from 90 to 10, which means that the value from the inner query first was executed and the value from the first inner query returned 10. So with 10, the department ID of the copy MP table got updated with the 10 value against with job ID against the value returned from the second inner query, that is AD underscore ASST against job ID AD underscore ASST, which means this query, the Oracle engine executes this query like this, where department ID is equal to the value returned from the first inner query, that is 10, and the value returned from the second inner query is AD underscore SST. As job ID, is a character field, so we are putting AD underscore SST in single quotes, and this query gets executed like this. Okay, this value is returned from the first inner query, and this value is returned from the second inner query. So how is it justifying updating rows based on another table? See, we are updating the department ID column of the copy MP table because department ID is the only column mentioned in the set clause. So whatever column will be mentioned in the set clause, so that particular column will be updated with the new value of the table. So after the update statement, the table name will be there, and in the set clause, the column names whose value will be updated, that will be there, and in the right side of the column name in the set clause, there will be the new value that will be updated in that particular column. Correct? And multiple columns will be separated by comma. So what happens in this case? That the value taken from the employees table is updated in the copy MP table. So which means both are different tables. So this justifies updating rows based on another table. You are updating the department ID column value of copy MP table based on the value in the employees table. Okay. So I hope that this tutorial will help you to understand the update statement and a bit of the insert statement also, because that a portion of insert statement I have already covered in the beginning of the vlog. So learners, practice at home and practice more and more to get accustomed to the tutorial of manipulating data in Oracle database. So learners, I hope that you have enjoyed the video and you have learned a lot about the update DML statement and a bit of the leftover insert DML statement, and this will help you to prepare for your exam. Learners who are preparing for global certification exams, learners who are preparing for any interviews, this will help you at least to crack the basic interviews. And freshers, do note my videos very carefully, and most importantly, only watching the video won't do, you have to practice it at home. If you check my description box, I have provided with links to download the IDE, that is the SQL Developer, from where to download the database, and what are the installation manuals of the database and the SQL Developer. Everything I have provided in the description box. The links are provided there. Please do follow that. So I hope that you have enjoyed the video, and I think that at least 1% you will learn from this video. That will be my success. So that's all for today, and please don't forget to like, share, subscribe my channel, and to comment. For any doubts, I am there to clear your doubts. And also, if you have any suggestions about how I can improve my videos, so that also you can put. All kind of suggestions are most welcome. And don't forget to hit the bell icon. So wait for my next tutorial video. Till then, good night.